7 months ago, Nintendo launched the Switch 2, and I picked one up on day one. Now that some real time has passed, I wanted to talk honestly about how I feel about it, the good, the bad, and whether I actually think it's worth buying right now. This isn't a hype video, and it's not a hate video either. I genuinely have some mixed opinions on the Switch 2 so far. The console came out back in June 2025, so we're basically little over half a year into its life. Nintendo have already sold millions of units, so clearly there's interest. But sales numbers don't always tell the full story, especially for early adopters. So let's start with the positives because there are a lot of things I'd really like to talk about in today's video. So, first up, I'd like to talk about the docked mode and its performance. This is the way I use my Switch a lot of the time, so I thought it'd be good to start here. This is the bulk of my experience. On my 4K TV, I think it runs really well. Switch 2 looks really great. The games are sharp, the colours pop really well, and the overall performance has been really solid. I haven't experienced really much lag. Everything feels very well optimized. I haven't really seen many frame drops or other weird performance issues. For a hybrid console that's handheld and able to plug into a TV, I think it's a really great performance for both. And I think as well the new dock on the one compared to the Switch 2 is a really great upgrade as well as kind of looking at the games sort of like Zelda and things like this have had Switch 1 and Switch 2 editions. Kind of it's a night and day difference in the graphics and how well they perform, and it's really great to explore some of these older games on a console that can actually perform them at the potential that they might have needed, definitely. Furthermore, I also think that the Switch's handheld mode is also a massive step up on the original console. I never had a Switch OLED, so I can't compare it to that, but compared to my original Switch, it's so much bigger, cleaner, brighter. Everything about it is way better. It feels a lot better in my hands. It feels like a lot more premium quality material as well, and I was really happy that they kind of fixed all these things and addressed it with the console. I think the overall build quality is really nice. The materials are just more premium. It feels less like a toy and it feels more like a proper gaming console. The battery life also not like it's not bad. It's not amazing either, but it's it's better than a lot of consoles and gaming laptops. So I'm really quite impressed with it and kind of the way it's a very unique console as well. So on a hardware level, I'm very impressed with the Switch 2, and kind of this is where things switch over for me, as I think they've done a really good job to build a very impressive hybrid console. But kind of as we get into more of the way they've sold the console and kind of the more software side of things, it's where I start to become less impressed with everything. So the first thing that has frustrated me about the Switch 2, and one issue that I did not expect to ignore me when they announced Switch 2 editions at launch, was how they've actually handled the transitional period in the game libraries between the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. I really like the eShop, and I think they've done a lot of great work to make it a lot smoother on the Switch 2. And I've picked up a lot of older games as well, that it seems they're doing a lot of more sales of older games that I'm more than happy to pick up to kind of play portably on my old Switch 1, but also play kind of on my Switch 2 as well in handheld mode. I think it's really great that they've done that. But the upgrade situation for a lot of games and games getting Switch 2 editions is really messy. Some games will get a Switch 2 edition that you'll have to buy separately or upgrade to, instead of just it automatically upscaling, and that is something that really bugs me because these games are clearly already capable of running at these higher resolutions. Like for example, if this was PC, you'd be able to just choose between 1080p and 4K. So why can't we do that with having if we have an enhanced edition for the Switch 2, we can play it in 4K and that's all good. But then if the game also has a Switch 1 version, why can I not go? And if I've bought the Switch 2 version, why can I not play the Switch 1 version at the lower resolution on my old console? I don't really use my old Switch anymore. It's just my travel console now, but kind of it is very like annoying, and obviously it's something that will be phased out in a year or two when I don't use it as much and I maybe use my Switch 2 as a travel console as well. But at the moment it's just very frustrating that it's either you have to have a low resolution game that you can play on both consoles, or you have to pay for a big upgrade version that you can't use on the old console. Obviously, this is an issue that will go away as things slowly start to develop and we get rid of the Switch 1 out of the life cycle, but I just don't think it's a great way to have handled these sort of things. So this leads me now really to my next and probably biggest concern so far: games. 7 months in, I don't think I've seen enough Switch to true exclusives. Looking ahead into 2026, there isn't been a huge amount of announcements yet for the console either, and this is something which I find really quite worrying. A whole lot of new releases are still to come for both the Switch 1 and Switch 2. And even when they get Switch 2 editions, they still feel like it's been held back. I just want games that are clearly designed only for the Switch 2, bigger, better, more ambitious projects that slow the pull potential of the hardware. As an early adopter, that's what you're paying for, and right now I don't feel like we're quite getting that yet. I really don't think it's great, especially when you know some of these games as well, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Pokemon ZA, the two main culprits that, they've also released DLC kind of 2-3 months after the main release, which is kind of feels like you're just holding back content and you could have released that all at once, and it feels like, a part of the post games for both that could have brought on to become something bigger. But either way, overall, I'm not impressed with the kind of game library and the slow announcements to start 2026. So I really hope that kind of next year they look to release some way better console exclusives, because at the moment it's not been a very impressive library for me so far, and I could have played basically everything bar maybe Donkey Kong Bonanza and Mario Kart World, all still on my Switch 1. So my final point on the console is then, guys, is mainly about the release period for the Switch 2. I get that there are many things delaying the Switch 2. COVID probably had a big expectation, parts, rising prices, these sort of things, but still, I think it could have maybe been a bit more of a powerful console for the price point as well, especially. I definitely think that kind of, we're already looking at other console manufacturers like PlayStation looking to their next things and performing even better than, the Switch 2 doesn't already perform anything close to the PlayStation or the Xbox, even though it's released how many. I get that it's a handheld console, but it should still kind of, these consoles are going to jump it even again, and it feels like the Switch 2's graphic potential is already going to be falling behind, even though it's a brand new console. It feels like it's going to be overleaped by these other manufacturers again. But I guess that's something we'll have to wait and see on with how the hardware market goes and how kind of other consoles adapt and how quickly they bring out new things. Hopefully it will match the test of time, and it will be a well performing console. But I have my worries about the way things are going and kind of how long before the Switch 2's graphics and hardware become kind of outdated and they need to bring out another OLED edition or something like that to hopefully match up and compete against things like the Switch Deck, which has a huge library and maybe already more powerful than the Switch 2. So, where does that leave me? Honestly, I really like the Switch 2. I think the hardware is the excellent side of it. There's a really great screen, docked mode is fantastic, and it feels like a really premium upgrade over the Switch 1. I think it's really showed the hardware capabilities and the things Nintendo can do, and I'm really happy about it. I just don't like how Nintendo have handled certain things, including the game upgrades, pricing, and cross console ownership. And I really think the lack of big exclusives have really made the console start to its life a little bit more disappointing than the hardware and all the hype that they went to generate towards this console. So, do I think the Switch 2 is worth it? If you're upgrading purely based on visuals, performance, and a better handheld experience Nintendo has ever made, then yes, it probably is for you. But if you're someone who is still on the budget and is kind of happy with their Switch 1 and still enjoying playing the library and that, I really wouldn't go for it now, as I don't think there's a lot of exclusives and any reason to really get it at the moment. It's got a lot of potential, and I'm sure as the years go on, there's going to be loads of really great exclusives. But for now, until Nintendo release a bunch of solid content for the next year, 2026, I really don't think you should really need to plan on getting one. But this has been my honest review of the Switch 2 in the last 7 months. I have really enjoyed using the console. I just think the lack of exclusives and the way Nintendo have held some price things have held it back. But I'm really impressed with the console they have produced, and I really look forward to seeing what Nintendo can do in the future. Hopefully you guys have really enjoyed listening to my opinions on the Switch 2, and if you have, I would really appreciate you leaving a like and a comment and checking out maybe some other videos I have on the channel. I really appreciate you watching. It has been Freaksy again. Thank you very much, and goodbye.